It turns out that when it comes to understanding both the future, eschatology, and the past, historical events in Scripture, our human tendency to prefer neat, comforting narratives often leads us to reshape evidence rather than let it shape us.
Really? That's kind of unsettling when you think about it. So you're saying we might be twisting Scripture or history just to fit what we want to believe?
Exactly. And that matters a lot, because how we interpret prophecy or historical facts doesn't just stay in the academic realm. It shapes our theology, how our faith communities interact, even our personal spiritual lives. If we force Scripture or history to fit a preferred story, we risk distorting the truth we're trying to honor.
Yeah, that makes sense. So by the end of this conversation, listeners will get a clearer picture of why there are so many different views on the end times and biblical history, and more importantly, how to avoid falling into that trap of editing the text instead of learning from it.
Right. Let's start with the future, eschatology. The landscape there is pretty complex. You've got historic and dispensational premillennialism, amillennialism, postmillennialism, and then all sorts of views on the timing of the rapture.
Uh-huh.
And these differences often come down to a few key factors. First, interpretive methods. Some people read prophetic texts literally, expecting concrete future events. Others see them symbolically or typologically, as representing broader spiritual realities.
So like, one person might see Revelation's beasts as actual future creatures, while another might see them as symbols of evil powers throughout history?
Exactly. Then there's selective emphasis. Different traditions highlight certain passages, Daniel, Revelation, Thessalonians, over others, which leads to very different timelines and expectations.
And I guess the historical or current context plays a role too. Like, during times of crisis, people might be more inclined to read prophecy in an apocalyptic way.
Yes, that's a big factor. The socio-political environment can intensify certain readings. And here's the kicker. A common pitfall is starting with a preferred eschatological system and then fitting Scripture into that framework, rather than letting the text guide the system.
That's classic confirmation bias, isn't it? We want to believe something, so we interpret everything to support it.
Exactly. And it's not just about the future. The same human tendencies apply to how we interpret past historical events in Scripture.
Like the debate over Jesus' tomb location?
Yes, the Church of the Holy Sepulchre versus the Garden Tomb. The Holy Sepulchre has a continuous tradition dating back to the early 4th century, supported by archaeological evidence. Rock-cut tombs from the 1st century, its location outside the city walls at Jesus' time, and botanical, remains consistent with a garden setting.
Right, and the Garden Tomb, while peaceful and spiritually appealing, actually dates back to the Iron Age, like 800 to 700 years before Jesus.
Exactly. Israeli archaeologist Gabriel Barkay's detailed study confirmed that. Plus, the skull-like cliff face near the Garden Tomb is mostly the result of later quarrying and erosion, not how it looked in the 1st century.
And there's no early Christian tradition linking the Garden Tomb to Jesus, right? It was only proposed in the 19th century.
Correct. It was popularized by General Charles Gordon and others, who were skeptical of Catholic and Orthodox traditions. Many Protestants prefer the Garden Tomb because it feels more like the Gospel's garden description and is free from the ornate, multi-denominational complexity of the Holy Sepulchre.
So emotional or spiritual appeal is real, but it doesn't equal historical authenticity.
Exactly. This example shows how tradition, emotional attachment, and group identity can lead us to dismiss archaeological and historical evidence that challenges our preferred views.
It's fascinating how the same psychological dynamics, confirmation bias, emotional attachment, desire for certainty, drive both future prophecy interpretation and historical interpretation.
Yes, and that's the common root problem. We create a narrative first, then force Scripture and evidence to fit it.
So what can we do to guard ourselves against this? How do we stay honest and humble in our study?
A few practical things. First, let the text say what it says before building a system. Resist the urge to impose a timeline or interpretation before thorough exegesis.
That's so important. Sometimes people jump straight to system building without wrestling with the text itself.
Right. Then, weigh all relevant historical and archaeological data. Don't cherry-pick evidence that supports your view. Consider the full spectrum.
And distinguish between clear biblical teaching and secondary inferences. Not everything in prophecy or history is spelled out explicitly.
Exactly. And remember that godly, careful believers have disagreed on these matters for centuries. That humility guards against arrogance and dogmatism.
So, holding eschatological or historical views with conviction but openness means saying, I currently lean this way, but I remain open if better evidence or clearer exegesis arises.
Yes, that posture fosters growth and unity rather than division.
I like that mental model you mentioned before. The difference between being a student of scripture and history versus being an editor.
Yeah, a student seeks to learn and be shaped by the material. An editor tries to rewrite it to fit preconceived ideas.
The Jesus tomb debate really exemplifies that. The Holy Sepulchre's archaeological and traditional weight makes it the strongest candidate, even if its atmosphere is less appealing. The Garden Tomb's emotional appeal is real but insufficient as historical evidence.
Exactly. That tension between evidence and preference is a microcosm of broader interpretive challenges in theology.
So to wrap up, the main challenge is this. We honor God more by submitting to the evidence He has given us, in Scripture and history, than by defending the narrative we prefer.
Proverbs 18 verse 17 puts it well. The one who states his case first seems right until the other comes and examines him.
That's a call to careful, ongoing examination rather than settling prematurely.
Right. So listeners, maybe take a moment to reflect. Where might you be protecting a preferred end times timeline or historical interpretation more than submitting to the full counsel of Scripture and evidence?
And what's one concrete step you can take this week to handle both Scripture and history more carefully?
That's a great challenge to leave with. Thanks for thinking this through with me.
Likewise. It's always good to remind ourselves to be students, not editors.